When we speak about the human mind, we often find ourselves looking for patterns that explain why some people seem ordinary, while others stand out in extraordinary ways. Carl Jung devoted his life to exploring the depths of personality, the shadows and archetypes, the conscious and unconscious forces that shape who we are. In today's lecture, we will enter a fascinating exploration of the rarest personality traits, the kinds of qualities that are not often found in the masses but reveal a depth of character, wisdom, and individuality that few possess. These signs are not simply quirks or habits, they are indicators of a soul that lives differently, perceives the world uniquely, and embodies qualities that make them almost impossible to replace. As we unfold these 8 signs, you may begin to recognize within yourself or others the profound markers of a rare personality, one that reflects both the complexity of Jung's psychological insights and the mysterious beauty of the human spirit. Deep self-awareness and heightened introspection are often regarded as the foundation of a rare personality, because they reveal a level of consciousness that most people do not often reach. Self-awareness goes far beyond knowing one's name, age, or occupation. It is the ability to turn inward, to observe one's own thoughts, emotions, and motivations with clarity and honesty. Those who carry this rare trait live with an ongoing dialogue within themselves, constantly questioning why they feel the way they do, why they act in certain ways, and what lies beneath the surface of their behaviors. Instead of being swept away by impulses or emotions, they pause, reflect, and attempt to trace the root of their experiences, which gives them a depth of understanding that allows them to navigate life differently from the majority. They are not afraid to face uncomfortable truths about themselves, even when those truths disrupt the image they project to others, because they know that genuine growth can only come when illusions are stripped away. This heightened introspection manifests in daily life in subtle but powerful ways. For example, while most people may respond quickly in conversations or arguments, the deeply self-aware person will often pause before speaking, not because they lack confidence but because they are carefully weighing their words, considering the impact those words may have, and reflecting on whether they align with their inner truth. They may keep journals, meditate, or simply spend quiet hours in contemplation, revisiting moments of their lives and analyzing them from multiple perspectives. This process does not make them overthinkers in the typical sense, but rather individuals who see thinking as a tool to uncover deeper meaning. They are willing to confront their flaws, question their past decisions, and challenge their own biases, which is why their growth curve often seems much sharper than those who remain content with surface-level self-perceptions. One of the most significant aspects of such self-awareness is emotional regulation. People with rare personalities who cultivate this depth can feel emotions intensely, but they are less likely to be controlled by them. When anger arises, they notice it within themselves, observe its triggers, and decide how best to respond. When sadness emerges, they sit with it, explore its cause, and allow it to teach them something about their unmet needs or unresolved wounds. In this way, they turn every emotional experience into a form of wisdom. Instead of blaming others or circumstances, they ask themselves what lesson is hidden in the situation, and how they can evolve through it. This makes them resilient in the face of challenges, because their inner dialogue continually equips them with strength, adaptability, and a profound sense of clarity. Another key element of heightened introspection is the pursuit of authenticity. The self-aware individual has little patience for living a double life or pretending to be something they are not. They know that wearing masks may win short-term approval, but it comes at the cost of inner peace. As such, they are more willing to risk rejection than to betray themselves. This kind of courage is rare because it requires a willingness to be vulnerable and misunderstood, yet it gives them a remarkable aura of confidence and integrity that others instinctively notice. People around them may describe them as different or hard to read, not because they are hiding something, but because their inner world is so rich and nuanced that it cannot easily be defined by conventional labels. This rare depth of awareness also brings with it an almost instinctive connection to meaning. While many people drift through life reacting to circumstances, the self-aware person continually searches for the why behind everything. They want to understand not just what happens, but the purpose behind it, whether it be in relationships, work, or even fleeting encounters. This orientation often pushes them toward philosophy, psychology, art, or spirituality, domains where questions are more important than answers, and exploration is valued more than certainty. They thrive in these spaces because their introspection fuels a natural curiosity about the mysteries of existence, and this curiosity makes them seekers of truth rather than passive recipients of tradition or culture. It is also worth noting that deep self-awareness often creates a heightened sense of responsibility. Those with this trait cannot easily ignore their actions or dismiss their consequences, because they are constantly aware of how their choices ripple outward into the world. They may wrestle more with guilt, ethical dilemmas, or the weight of decision-making, but this struggle gives them a moral compass that is stronger than most. Their ability to examine themselves honestly prevents them from rationalizing harmful behavior, and when they make mistakes, they are quick to acknowledge them and strive to make amends. This integrity is rare and often admired, because it demonstrates a humility and self-honesty that society desperately needs. A strong sense of individuality and independence from societal norms is one of the clearest markers of a rare personality, because it represents the courage to live authentically in a world that constantly pressures people to conform. Most individuals are shaped and conditioned by the expectations of family, community, culture, and society at large. They dress, speak, behave, and even think according to what is deemed acceptable, fearing the consequences of standing out. But those with truly rare personalities break away from this pattern. They do not rebel for the sake of rebellion, nor do they seek attention through difference. Rather, they are compelled to live in alignment with their inner compass, regardless of whether it matches the standards around them. This independence is not loud or boastful, it is quiet, firm, and consistent, an inner resolve that guides them through life with clarity and conviction. Such people do not measure their worth by how many followers they have, how well they fit into popular trends, or whether others approve of their life choices. Instead, they measure their worth by how authentically they are living according to their truth. For them, individuality is not simply about external expression, like having a unique style of clothing or an unconventional hobby, but about the deeper integrity of thought, values, and principles. They are not afraid to question traditions that make no sense to them, nor are they easily swayed by the persuasive voices of authority or majority. Where most people are quick to accept norms because they fear being excluded, the independent personality understands that true belonging can only happen when one refuses to abandon the self in exchange for social approval. This independence often reveals itself in the way such individuals make decisions. They do not simply follow what everyone else is doing. They take the time to reflect, to weigh the consequences, and to decide based on their own beliefs. If society praises a certain career path, but it does not align with their passions, they will walk another road. If cultural expectations demand a certain lifestyle, but it clashes with their values, they will craft a life of their own design. This kind of freedom is rare because it demands sacrifice. It means being misunderstood, sometimes being criticized, and often being lonely. Yet the rare personality accepts these costs, because the alternative, living a life that is not truly theirs, is far heavier to bear. Another aspect of their individuality is the creative spark that often accompanies it. Independence from norms gives them the space to think outside the box, to innovate, and to create ideas or solutions that others may overlook. Because they are not bound by conventional thinking, they can see connections between concepts that seem unrelated, and they can approach problems with originality. This trait often makes them pioneers in their fields, whether in art, science, philosophy, or social reform. Their very existence challenges the status quo and inspires others to reconsider what they have always accepted without question. They do not seek validation, but their example becomes a quiet revolution, showing others that life can be lived differently. What truly sets these individuals apart, however, is not just their independence but their strength of character. It is easy to claim individuality when it is fashionable, but it takes rare resilience to maintain it when society pushes back. These personalities often face criticism, gossip, or even rejection for refusing to comply, but they continue on their path with determination. They are not reckless. They understand the risks of their choices, but they are willing to bear them in order to stay true to themselves. This strength often comes from a deep inner confidence, not in the sense of arrogance, but in the quiet knowledge that their life has purpose and that living authentically is worth any cost. Even in relationships, their independence is clear. They do not cling to others out of insecurity or fear of being alone. They value companionship and connection, but they refuse to compromise their essence to maintain it. This makes their bonds deeper and more genuine, because they attract people who respect them for who they truly are, rather than for the masks they wear. Their friendships, partnerships, and collaborations are built on mutual authenticity, not shallow conformity. In a world where many relationships are sustained by pretense or convenience, this authenticity shines like a rare gem, because they stand apart. Individuals with this rare personality are often misunderstood. People may label them as stubborn, aloof, or even rebellious, but in truth, their actions are guided not by defiance, but by integrity. They do not need to prove themselves to others, because their focus is on living a life that is deeply their own. This sense of individuality gives them a freedom that few experience, a life shaped not by external control but by internal direction, and it is this independence that allows their personality to remain rare and unforgettable. Natural empathy with profound emotional intelligence is one of the hallmarks of an extremely rare personality, because it demonstrates a capacity to feel and understand others in ways that go beyond simple kindness or politeness. Empathy, at its core, is the ability to step into another person's shoes, to sense their emotions, and to resonate with their inner world. For most people, empathy may appear in fleeting moments, when a loved one is hurting or a friend is in need. But for those with rare personalities, this ability is a constant presence, guiding their interactions and shaping their decisions in ways that make them deeply attuned to human experience. They do not just hear words when someone speaks, they perceive the unspoken emotions behind the words, the tone, the hesitation, the subtle signals that reveal what a person truly feels but may not say. This rare depth of perception makes them anchors of comfort in a world that often feels disconnected. Emotional intelligence extends empathy into action, because it not only recognizes emotions in others, but also manages emotions within oneself. People with high emotional intelligence can sense anger without letting it turn destructive, can feel sorrow without becoming overwhelmed, and can experience joy without clinging to it. They maintain an inner balance that allows them to respond to others with patience, compassion, and wisdom, even in stressful situations. This balance comes from their ability to observe emotions as signals rather than as absolute truths. They ask themselves what the emotion is pointing toward, whether it is revealing an unmet need, an unresolved wound, or a hidden desire. By treating emotions as teachers instead of enemies, they cultivate an inner strength that radiates outward, making them dependable sources of stability for others. Such empathy is not limited to close relationships. It often extends to strangers, animals, and even the natural world. A person with rare emotional intelligence may feel genuine sorrow when witnessing injustice, or they may experience joy simply by seeing another succeed. They are sensitive to the collective atmosphere around them, able to walk into a room and immediately sense whether tension, joy, or fear is present. This ability can be both a blessing and a burden, because feeling so deeply means they sometimes carry the weight of emotions that are not their own. Yet their resilience comes from the way they process and transform these emotions, often channeling them into acts of kindness, creativity, or advocacy that benefit others. Another striking aspect of their empathy is the depth of their listening. Most people listen to respond, but those with profound emotional intelligence listen to understand. They do not rush to offer solutions or turn the conversation toward themselves. Instead, they create a safe space where others feel truly seen and heard. This presence can be transformative, because so many individuals go through life feeling invisible or misunderstood. A rare personality with this trait has the power to make others feel validated and valued, simply through the way they listen and respond. It is no surprise that people often confide in them, drawn by the sense of acceptance and compassion that radiates from their being. Their empathy also gives them a unique ability to navigate conflict. While others may escalate arguments or withdraw in frustration, they strive to see both sides, to find the deeper needs beneath the clashing words, and to guide situations toward harmony. This does not mean they avoid confrontation. Instead, they approach it with a calm awareness, knowing that behind anger is usually pain, and behind defensiveness is often fear. By recognizing these layers, they can address conflicts with wisdom and fairness, transforming what might have been destructive encounters into opportunities for understanding and growth. It is also important to recognize that this level of empathy often inspires a calling to help others, whether through counseling, teaching, art, or simply living with compassion. They feel a sense of responsibility to use their gift for the benefit of the world. They are not motivated by fame or recognition, but by the quiet fulfillment of knowing they have lightened someone's burden or uplifted someone's spirit. This sense of service often sets them apart in a society that prioritizes self-interest, making them rare examples of selflessness and humanity. Yet, alongside their gift, they must also learn boundaries. Because they feel so deeply, they can easily become drained if they absorb too much of the pain around them. The rare personality develops the wisdom to balance empathy with self-care, understanding that in order to give freely they must also protect their own well-being. This balance allows their emotional intelligence to remain a strength rather than a weakness, sustaining their ability to offer genuine compassion without losing themselves in the process. Through this balance of empathy, awareness, and resilience, they embody a quality of presence that is uncommon and deeply transformative for everyone who crosses their path. A preference for meaningful connections over superficial relationships is another defining feature of an extremely rare personality, because it reflects the depth of their values and the way they choose to invest their emotional energy. Many people surround themselves with large social circles, collecting acquaintances and casual friends in order to feel validated, admired, or socially secure. For those with rare personalities, however, this kind of surface-level engagement feels empty and unfulfilling. They are not interested in popularity or the illusion of belonging that comes from being surrounded by many people. Instead, they seek out bonds that are authentic, profound, and built upon mutual respect, trust, and understanding. They value quality far more than quantity, and this orientation toward depth over breadth sets them apart from the majority. When such individuals form relationships, they do so with intention. They are not easily impressed by charm, status, or outward appearances, but instead look for alignment of values, honesty of character, and the capacity for emotional depth. This means their circle of close friends may be small, but the connections within that circle run deep. These are the people with whom they can share their vulnerabilities, their struggles, their dreams, and their raw truths without fear of being judged or dismissed. Because they offer this level of authenticity themselves, they expect the same from others, and when they find it, they nurture those bonds with loyalty and care. This preference for meaningful connection creates relationships that can withstand time, distance, and hardship, because they are rooted in more than convenience or entertainment. The rare personality often feels drained in environments that encourage shallow interactions, such as gossip-driven conversations, competitive social gatherings, or relationships based on image and status. They may even appear reserved or withdrawn in such settings, not because they lack social skills, but because they refuse to expend their energy where it cannot grow into something real. This selectivity can sometimes make them appear distant or hard to approach, but in truth, it is a reflection of their integrity. They understand that emotional energy is not limitless, and so they choose to invest it where it can truly matter. Their time and attention are gifts, given thoughtfully and purposefully, rather than scattered across countless surface-level interactions. One of the most remarkable aspects of this trait is the depth of intimacy that develops within their chosen relationships. Because they are not afraid of vulnerability, they invite others to open up as well. Their presence feels safe, and their willingness to explore topics of meaning such as personal growth, spirituality, values, or the mysteries of life creates conversations that linger long after they end. These dialogues become sources of mutual inspiration and growth, building a sense of connection that feels rare in a world dominated by small talk and fleeting encounters. For those lucky enough to share such a bond with them, the experience is often life-changing because it brings a sense of being truly seen and deeply valued. Another layer to this preference for meaningful connection is the way it influences their romantic relationships. They do not enter partnerships lightly, nor do they engage in relationships solely for appearance, status, or temporary pleasure. For them, love must be rooted in authenticity and shared purpose. They seek partners who can walk beside them in growth, who value honesty and depth as much as they do, and who are willing to build something meaningful over time. This approach may make their path in love more challenging, as they are unwilling to settle for less, but it also ensures that when they do find love, it is profound, transformative, and enduring. Even within professional or community settings, this preference shapes their interactions. They are drawn to mentors, collaborators, and colleagues who inspire them to think more deeply, to grow beyond their limitations, and to create something of lasting value. They shy away from shallow networking or transactional exchanges, preferring to establish relationships that are built on genuine respect and shared vision. This means that, although they may not be the most socially visible, they are often the ones who form the strongest and most enduring partnerships, both personally and professionally. In many ways, this emphasis on depth reflects their overall philosophy of life. They do not want to waste their existence on superficial pursuits or empty connections. They want to experience the richness of what it means to be human, and that richness is most vividly found in the bonds we share with others. Through their insistence on authenticity, they remind the world that real connection is not about numbers or appearances, but about trust, honesty, and the courage to be vulnerable. For them, a single authentic relationship carries more value than 100 shallow ones. And this conviction shapes the way they love, live, and interact with the world. High tolerance for solitude and inner growth is one of the most distinguishing qualities of a rare personality, because it reflects a comfort with oneself that few people ever achieve. In a society that glorifies constant interaction, distraction, and external validation, many individuals struggle with the idea of being alone. They seek noise, company, or entertainment to avoid confronting the silence within. But those with rare personalities view solitude not as emptiness, but as opportunity. They embrace time spent alone as a sacred space for reflection, healing, and self-discovery. For them, solitude is not isolation but connection to their own inner world, their deepest thoughts, and the subtle whispers of their intuition. This tolerance for being alone is not born out of rejection or loneliness but out of strength, because it requires courage to face oneself without the buffer of constant external stimulation. When in solitude, they are not restless or uneasy. Instead, they engage in practices that nurture their mind and spirit. Some may write, meditate, or simply sit in quiet observation of their thoughts, while others may immerse themselves in creative expression or exploration of new ideas. The stillness of solitude allows them to process their experiences more deeply than those who rush from one interaction to the next. It gives them the space to examine their beliefs, to question their assumptions, and to recognize patterns in their lives that might otherwise go unnoticed. This practice of turning inward builds a reservoir of wisdom, because in the silence they find clarity that cannot be accessed amid the constant noise of daily life. This comfort with solitude also nurtures their independence. They are not driven by the fear of being alone, nor do they depend on others to constantly affirm their worth. Instead, they derive strength from their own company, understanding that true peace cannot be found outside unless it is first cultivated within. This self-reliance does not make them cold or detached. On the contrary, it makes their relationships healthier, because they are not built on neediness or fear of abandonment. When they connect with others, it is by choice rather than desperation, which means those connections are more genuine and balanced. They are able to give freely without expecting others to fill voids that they have already addressed within themselves. Another profound aspect of their solitude is its role in their personal growth. Time alone allows them to confront their fears, insecurities, and shadows without distraction. Many avoid solitude because it forces them to face truths they would rather ignore, but the rare personality embraces it as a chance to integrate those truths into their journey. They sit with discomfort, work through pain, and transform struggle into strength. Over time, this practice of inner growth builds resilience, wisdom, and emotional maturity, qualities that set them apart from those who constantly seek external validation. Their growth is not linear or superficial but deep and enduring, because it is rooted in the soil of self-awareness cultivated in solitude. The tolerance for solitude also fuels their creativity and originality. Many great thinkers, artists, and innovators have credited their breakthroughs to time spent alone, where their minds were free from the influence of societal noise. Similarly, the rare personality finds inspiration in silence, drawing ideas from the depths of their subconscious or from the stillness of simply observing life. Their capacity to be alone without fear allows them to cultivate originality, because they are less likely to mimic others and more likely to explore paths that emerge from their own inner vision. In this way, solitude becomes not only a source of peace but also a source of innovation and self-expression. Though they value solitude, they are not antisocial or detached from others. They simply understand that constant interaction without purpose drains their energy, while intentional solitude restores it. This balance gives them a calm presence in social interactions, because they are not desperately clinging to the moment but approaching it from a place of fullness. Others may wonder how they can spend so much time alone without feeling lonely. But what they do not see is that solitude for the rare personality is rich with meaning, growth, and connection to the deeper aspects of existence. Their high tolerance for being alone allows them to live authentically, to evolve continually, and to offer the world the wisdom they have gathered in the quiet spaces where few dare to go. A unique perspective that challenges conventional thinking is one of the most striking indicators of a rare personality, because it reveals a mind that does not simply accept the world as it is presented, but constantly questions, analyzes, and reimagines it. Most people are conditioned to adopt the viewpoints of their culture, community, or authority figures without much reflection, conforming to the dominant narratives because it feels safer and easier. Those with rare personalities, however, carry within them a restless curiosity that refuses to settle for superficial explanations. They look at traditions, beliefs, and assumptions, not as fixed truths, but as constructs open to examination. This capacity to think differently allows them to identify blind spots in collective thought, to see patterns others miss, and to propose ideas that disrupt the ordinary in ways that can be both inspiring and unsettling. Their perspective often feels ahead of its time because they see possibilities beyond what the majority has yet considered. This unique perspective shows up in the way they approach problems. Where others see obstacles, they see opportunities to innovate. They are able to step outside conventional frameworks and imagine alternatives that seem almost invisible to those locked into habitual patterns of thought. Whether in art, science, philosophy, or daily life, their unconventional lens leads to creative solutions that reshape the way others view a situation. For example, while many might address a conflict by choosing sides, they might see a third path that integrates both perspectives. While others limit themselves to what has been done before, they are willing to explore uncharted territory, guided by their conviction that truth and progress require courage to deviate from the familiar. At the heart of this perspective is a deep skepticism of conformity. They are not contrarians for the sake of opposition, but they resist the idea that something is true or right simply because it is widely accepted. This resistance to blind conformity gives them intellectual and moral freedom, enabling them to align their choices with their own reasoning and values rather than the pressure of the crowd. They may question why certain customs exist, why certain ideas are repeated without evidence, or why systems that clearly fail are allowed to persist. This questioning makes them unsettling to those who depend on obedience to maintain control, but it also makes them powerful catalysts for change. The ability to challenge conventional thinking also comes with a willingness to embrace uncertainty. While many cling to familiar beliefs to avoid the discomfort of not knowing, rare personalities accept that life is full of ambiguity and that growth requires venturing into the unknown. Their comfort with uncertainty allows them to hold multiple perspectives without rushing to a single conclusion, to explore paradoxes rather than avoid them, and to remain open to possibilities that others dismiss too quickly. This openness is what fuels their originality, because by resisting the urge to cling to ready-made answers, they make space for insights that can reshape their worldview and the worldview of others. This trait often sets them apart socially, because their conversations, ideas, and questions can feel intense or even unsettling to those who prefer to stay within the boundaries of conventional thought. They might bring up topics others avoid, challenge assumptions during discussions, or point out contradictions in commonly held beliefs. While some may perceive this as difficult or confrontational, those who appreciate depth recognize it as a rare gift. Engaging with such a personality expands one's own thinking, pushing individuals to reconsider long-held ideas and to open themselves to new possibilities. Though not everyone may welcome this, those who do often find themselves transformed by the exchange. Another aspect of their unique perspective is its ability to inspire. Because they see the world differently, they can envision a future that is not bound by the limitations of the present. This visionary quality often attracts others, even if at first it is met with skepticism. They might see potential in people that others overlook, possibilities in situations that seem hopeless, or opportunities in challenges that appear insurmountable. Their rare way of viewing the world makes them natural leaders, innovators, and creators, not because they seek power but because their ideas resonate with those ready for change. Their influence comes from the clarity of their vision and their courage to stand by it, even when it is unpopular. In personal life, this unique perspective also enriches their relationships. They are able to help others see themselves from new angles, offering insights that break through self-doubt or limited thinking. They encourage growth by asking questions no one else dares to ask, and by suggesting possibilities others cannot yet imagine. Their presence challenges those around them to expand their horizons, making interactions with them stimulating, sometimes challenging, but always meaningful. In a world that often rewards conformity and discourages deviation, their ability to hold and express a unique perspective makes them rare, unforgettable, and deeply valuable to the progress of both individuals and society as a whole. Strong alignment between values and actions is one of the most powerful traits that define an extremely rare personality, because it demonstrates a level of integrity and consistency that is uncommon in a world where many people compromise their principles for convenience, approval, or personal gain. For most, values are ideals that they aspire to but do not always embody in practice. It is easy to speak about honesty, compassion, or justice, but when life presents challenges, those values often bend under pressure. For someone with a rare personality, however, values are not abstract concepts but living principles that guide decisions, shape behavior, and reflect in daily life. There is no separation between what they believe and how they act, and this alignment creates a sense of authenticity and trustworthiness that others immediately notice. This harmony between values and actions can be seen in even the smallest choices. If they believe in honesty, they practice it not only in significant matters but also in everyday interactions, refusing to twist the truth for convenience or to gain an advantage. If they value kindness, it shows in how they treat strangers, colleagues, and loved ones alike, without needing recognition for it. If they prioritize justice, they are willing to speak up against unfairness, even when it would be easier to stay silent. Such consistency builds a foundation of reliability, because people know that their words are not empty promises but genuine reflections of who they are. They are the kind of individuals others feel they can trust, because their lives reflect what they claim to stand for. This alignment does not come without cost. Living according to values often requires sacrifice. They may lose opportunities, friendships, or approval because they refuse to compromise what matters most to them. In workplaces, for example, they may choose integrity over advancement, speaking truth even when it risks their career. In relationships, they may set boundaries that protect their principles, even if it means losing connections. In society, they may refuse to go along with trends that conflict with their beliefs, even if it makes them outsiders. Yet, despite these costs, they continue to stand firm because to betray their values would mean betraying themselves, and that is a price they are unwilling to pay. This kind of strength is rare and inspiring, because it reveals a courage that transcends the desire for comfort or acceptance. Another dimension of this trait is the way it brings them inner peace. While many struggle with guilt, regret, or inner conflict because their actions contradict their beliefs, those who align values with actions experience a profound sense of coherence within themselves. They do not live with the constant tension of being one person in public and another in private. Their lives feel integrated, and this integration creates a stability that others can feel in their presence. This inner peace gives them clarity in decision-making, because they do not waste energy rationalizing or excusing behavior that contradicts their conscience. They know who they are, what they stand for, and how to live accordingly. Their consistency also has a powerful impact on others. In a world full of contradictions and hypocrisy, people naturally gravitate toward those who embody authenticity. They may not always agree with the values of such individuals, but they respect the fact that they live by them without wavering. This respect often inspires others to reflect on their own values and to question whether they are living in alignment with them. Rare personalities become silent teachers in this way, not by preaching but by demonstrating through their lives what it looks like to live with integrity. Their example challenges others to hold themselves accountable and to strive for a similar coherence between belief and action. It is also important to recognize that their alignment is not rigid or subtle. They do not impose their values on others with arrogance, nor do they see themselves as superior for living differently. Instead, their approach is rooted in humility, because they understand that values are deeply personal and shaped by unique experiences. Their commitment is to their own integrity, not to controlling others. This humility makes their authenticity even more powerful, because it shows that they live by values out of genuine conviction rather than a desire to prove themselves right. The alignment between values and actions also strengthens their resilience. When challenges arise, they do not crumble in confusion, because they already know the principles that will guide them through. They can endure difficulties with patience, because their actions are fueled by conviction rather than fleeting emotions. This consistency becomes a source of strength for others as well, who look to them for guidance in times of uncertainty. In many ways, their lives become a compass for those around them, pointing toward what it means to live with integrity, courage, and authenticity in a world that often rewards the opposite. The ability to transform pain or struggle into wisdom and creativity is one of the rarest and most profound traits a personality can hold, because it shows a resilience that not only survives hardship but turns it into a source of strength and inspiration. Many people experience suffering as something that breaks them, something that leaves scars they try to hide or wounds they never fully recover from. But for those with rare personalities, pain is not wasted, becomes material for growth, reflection, and the creation of something meaningful. They are not defined by what they endure but by how they rise from it, reshaping their suffering into lessons that enrich their lives and the lives of others. Their struggles do not make them bitter. Instead, they deepen their understanding of human nature, expanding their empathy, patience, and wisdom in ways that those untouched by hardship may never fully grasp. This transformative ability is not about denying or suppressing pain. On the contrary, they allow themselves to feel it deeply, to sit with the weight of their emotions, and to honor the reality of their suffering. Rather than running from discomfort, they ask what the pain is teaching them, what hidden strength it is drawing out, or what aspect of themselves it is pushing them to confront. This mindset allows them to extract meaning from experiences that might otherwise seem meaningless, finding patterns and purposes that others overlook. By doing so, they cultivate a perspective that turns even their darkest seasons into stepping stones toward greater clarity and self-awareness. Creativity often emerges naturally from this process. Struggle unlocks parts of the human psyche that comfort rarely reaches, and those with rare personalities know how to channel that depth into expression. Pain becomes poetry, heartbreak becomes art, loss becomes innovation, and grief becomes philosophy. Their creative output resonates with others because it carries authenticity and depth, qualities that can only come from lived experience. Whether through words, music, painting, or any other form of expression, they transform their inner battles into something that speaks to universal truths, touching hearts because it reflects the shared human journey of suffering and survival. Their creations remind others that beauty can emerge from brokenness, and that what seems like an ending can often be the beginning of something new. This ability to turn pain into wisdom also shapes their worldview. They no longer see struggle as purely negative, but as a necessary part of life's unfolding. They understand that hardship often strips away illusions, forcing people to face themselves honestly and to grow in ways they would not have chosen voluntarily. Because of this, they are less likely to resent their difficulties and more likely to embrace them as part of a larger process of transformation. This acceptance does not mean they enjoy suffering, but it does mean they refuse to let it defeat them. Instead, they see it as raw material from which they can forge strength, insight, and compassion. One of the most profound outcomes of this trait is the way it equips them to guide others. Having walked through fire themselves, they are able to empathize deeply with those in pain and to offer comfort that is not hollow or superficial. They do not minimize suffering or offer easy cliches. Instead, they share their own stories of struggle and survival as living proof that it is possible to endure and even thrive after hardship. Their presence alone becomes healing, because people can sense the depth of their resilience and feel hope that they too can rise from their own challenges. Their ability to transform pain also prevents them from being defined by victimhood. While many cling to their suffering as an identity, the rare personality refuses to remain trapped in that space. They honor their wounds, but they also move beyond them, refusing to let adversity dictate the entirety of their narrative. This shift from victim to survivor to creator is what makes them so extraordinary, because it shows the alchemy of the human spirit, the capacity to take what is broken and make it whole again, not as it once was, but as something even stronger and more beautiful. Ultimately, their lives become a testament to the resilience of the human soul. Pain, instead of silencing them, becomes their voice. Struggle, instead of limiting them, expands their horizons. Loss, instead of closing doors, opens new ones. This transformation is not accidental but the result of their courage to confront pain honestly, their wisdom to seek meaning in it, and their creativity to express it in ways that uplift others. In doing so, they embody a rare kind of strength that inspires all who encounter them, showing that struggle is not the end but a catalyst for growth, and that from suffering can emerge wisdom, beauty, and the power to touch lives in unforgettable ways.